Chapter 13. The Ultimate Shortcut Concluded. The Deceitfulness of Riches. 1. What a peculiar phrase is the deceitfulness of riches. How could lifeless, inanimate riches be deceitful? Many points could be brought to light in answer to this question, one being what I have already highlighted using Macbeth as an example, that riches tend to offer a false sense of security. Although money can often enable its possessor to delay death for a time, purchasing food, drink, shelter, medicine, and the like, it cannot do so indefinitely, is not guaranteed to do so at all, and on the contrary may even lead to a person's downfall and premature death, as in Macbeth's case. But there is one explanation I wish to explore, which I feel strikes most directly at the heart of this question. Quite serendipitously, as I was preparing to write this chapter, a little book fell into my hands which, I was delighted to discover, communicates the point I wish to discuss here far more sharply and eloquently than I ever could have done myself. The book is called Unto This Last, written in late 19th century Britain by John Ruskin, and it has left a profound impression on me. I hope you'll forgive me then for drawing extensively on Ruskin's words and quoting several of his passages at length. That being said, I wish to begin by calling your attention to the fact that, generally speaking, riches do not enable their possessor to delay death in and of themselves. Diamonds, gold nuggets, paper bills, or numbers in a bank's database cannot be drunk or eaten, nor can they provide protection from the elements or cure pneumonia. If the wealthiest man on earth were stranded alone on a remote island with all his riches piled on the sand, what benefit would they provide him? Note, too, that although money has found a place in most civilizations, there have been a few societies throughout history, some rather large and prosperous, in which money was not used. The point is that money is not an end in itself, but merely a means to an end. And that end is clearly evidenced by the plight of our hypothetically marooned rich man. Ruskin puts it succinctly: the chief value and virtue of money consists in its having power over human beings. Riches enable their possessor to convince another person to do things they otherwise wouldn't be willing to do, the farmer to hand over vegetables he grew himself, the builder to construct a home he doesn't intend to live in, the cook to prepare and serve a meal to a stranger, the hairstylist to wash, cut, and sculpt a client's hair, the online business owner to assemble, package, and ship a product far away. The list goes on and on. What incredible power! However, if we accept that what is really desired under the name of riches is essentially power over men, then two things must also be acknowledged. First, though its force could be quite strong, money's power is nevertheless always imperfect and doubtful. There are many things which cannot be retained by it. Many joys may be given to men which cannot be bought for gold, and many fidelities found in men which cannot be rewarded with it. Riches have their limits, as evidenced by such common phrases as, "You couldn't pay me enough," or "not for all the money in the world." Second, there are other influences in this world proven to have a much more perfect and consistent sway over men. As Ruskin writes, "A man's hand may be full of invisible gold, and the wave of it or the grasp shall do more than another's with a shower of bullion. This invisible gold also does not necessarily diminish in spending." Additionally, Jim Carrey once observed, "The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is." Surely you've experienced the truth of this within your family, your circle of close friends, or your community. We often feel motivated to share our time, energy, or possessions with those we love without any thought for payment or reciprocation. Perhaps there's someone you respect, love, or trust so deeply you feel you'd do anything for them. History has known a few rare individuals whose character, virtue, and trustworthiness were such that others were willing to lay down their very lives for them. Set beside such invisible gold, the visible kind pales in comparison. Fair enough, you may say, I'll seek to obtain both kinds. Perhaps not an unworthy objective, were it not for the fact that the pursuit of these two types of power are unavoidably and eternally at odds with one another. Though it doesn't seem obvious, hence the deceptiveness, to attempt to obtain both simultaneously is to participate in a tug of war within your soul, and can only result in exhaustion, frustration, and despair. Allow me to explain. Adam Smith's Invisible Hand and the Science of Self-Interest. Adam Smith was an economist in 18th century Scotland and is widely considered the father of capitalism. His book, The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, laid the foundation for modern Western economics and continues to be massively influential today. While many of his ideas have done much good for humanity, there's one concept he introduced that pervades modern economic theory and, whether because it was misguided or has been misinterpreted or has become overinflated, it has caused much harm to many under its influence. This concept has come to be known as the invisible hand theory, and its premise is that every member of society should seek only his own security and pursue only his own gain, and in doing so will inadvertently be led by an invisible hand to promote the public interest. John Ruskin elaborates that since kindness and compassion are seen as rare and variable traits in human nature, and avarice and the desire of progress are constant elements, the invisible hand theory, at least as it is widely interpreted, suggests we ought to eliminate the inconstants and, considering the human being merely as a covetous machine, examine by what laws of labor, purchase, and sale the greatest accumulative result in wealth is attainable. A philosophy not unlike the one preached by Korihor in the Book of Mormon, that every man fared in this life according to the management of the creature, therefore every man prospered according to his genius, and that every man conquered according to his strength, and whatsoever a man did was no crime. An ideology so pleasing unto the carnal mind, perhaps it's no wonder it was adopted so readily. What? You mean the best thing I can do for my fellow man is to single-mindedly seek as much riches for myself as I can by whatever means at my disposal? Say no more. Now, whether this promotion of avarice and selfishness is what Adam Smith intended when he introduced this theory is debatable. But what can hardly be debated is its result. This concept is so foundational to today's practices, in fact, that modern economics has unironically and unashamedly been named the science of self-interest. Nevertheless, given the seeming prosperity enjoyed by many countries that have adopted this system, you may wonder how I could argue against it, even despite its transparently unchristian nature. But to see clearly why this system is mistaken and misleading, we must ponder a little more deeply the fundamental nature of riches and their limitations. One of those limitations is embodied in the fact, which we almost always overlook, that within the framework of the science of self-interest, the word rich inherently implies the existence of its opposite, poor. Ruskin writes, "Men nearly always speak and write as if riches were absolutes, and it were possible, by following certain scientific precepts, for everybody to be rich. Whereas riches are a power like that of electricity, acting only through inequalities or negations of itself. The force of the guinea you have in your pocket depends wholly on the default of a guinea in your neighbor's pocket. If he did not want it, it would be of no use to you. The degree of power it possesses depends accurately upon the need or desire he has for it, and the art of making yourself rich in the ordinary sense is therefore equally and necessarily the art of keeping your neighbor poor." It should be fairly obvious, then, that in a system of everybody seek their own security, if everyone became materially rich, those riches would lose all value. Aristophanes, the ancient Greek playwright, illustrated this well. In his play Plutus, a character named Poverty speaks, "No more on a bed will you pillow your head, for there won't be a bed in the land. Nor carpets, for whom will you find at the loom, when he's plenty of money in hand? Rich perfume no more will ye sprinkle and pour, as home you are bringing the bride. or apparel the fair in habiliments rare, so cunningly fashioned and dyed. Yet of little avail is your wealth if it fail such enjoyments as these to procure you. You fools, it is I who alone a supply of the goods which you covet ensure you. Therefore, though we rarely consider the matter thoroughly enough to consciously recognize it, he who by this frame of mind seeks to become rich is necessarily dabbling in the art of establishing the maximum inequality in his own favor. Now, there will be some who won't find this revelation particularly troubling. It's a brutal world, they may say with a shrug, and I'm just as entitled to fight for my piece of the pie as anyone else. If my getting more means somebody else gets less, that's just reality. That's just evolution. That's survival of the fittest, and it's none of my concern. To such I can perhaps do no more than wish them the best in their efforts at creature management. But if I could retain their attention for just a few moments, I might remind them of the fate met by some who have traveled that road to its natural endpoint. King Noah and Marie Antoinette, for example, whose treasure perished with them also. Indeed, there is that maketh himself rich, yet hath nothing.